Okay, let us come to God in prayer. Good and gracious God, thank you for giving us Jesus Christ, for all that Christ gives to us. Joy, words of wisdom, parables to ponder, a healing touch when we need it, and a new life born out of suffering and given to us through your actions of raising Jesus up, and that we can join him in a new life together. So I ask that you take the hot coals off of your altar and touch these lips of clay, so that the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our thoughts, hearts, be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our most holy Redeemer. Amen. So happy birthday, First Congregational Church of San Rafael, 130 years. So have you ever had a birthday that was more existential than others? Maybe the 40th birthday or the 60th, or that was more meaningful or intense or seriously more introspective than others? Maybe it wasn't your birthday, but it was the start of something new. When you asked the certain questions, who am I? How did I get here? And why am I here? If not now, well, when? I looked at the text from John. Okay, I got this. Then I looked at the text from Genesis 12, and I sort of scratched my head, and I wondered, well, what do they have in common? The text from Genesis 12 is the familiar story of Abram minding his own business when God tells Abraham to pack up his things and take his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot and go to a place that God will show him. Although we don't hear God promising descendants as numerous as there are stars in the sky and sand in the ocean quite yet, that will come in later chapters. But there is a fivefold blessing here, a fivefold promise. 1, of God's blessing. 2, of fame and lots of descendants. That's 3. 4, that you will be a mighty nation. And 5, land. God will give Abraham some land. With total trust and total faith, and with no map, with no GPS and no Siri to give wrong directions, to tell him where to go, Abraham takes off for parts unknown. I wondered about the connection between John 3:16 and 17, because you can't have 16 without 17, because there is no condemnation. Jesus and Genesis 12. And then I thought, well, how does that connect with our own origin stories of First Congregational Church of San Rafael? And as I contemplated this connection to come together, and if you remember my announcement about our 130 years ago, a few weeks ago, 130 years ago, 130 years a few weeks ago, or read my blurb in the Thai, some of this might sound familiar. I was trying to figure out, because the thoughts just come in kind of random. It's not like I went there. How does First Congregational Church then and now, how does John 3:16 and 17 and Abraham's story of God saying, Abraham, go, how do they all connect? And if you remember, my thought process is that when I began my doctoral program at the Pacific School of Religion, I needed to turn in three things: a bibliography and a table of contents that would be my outline of where I think I am going at this point in the journey, and then something about context of where I'm doing ministry. Some people are doing ministry in a parish ministry like this, like myself. Others are are chaplains in prisons. Others are chaplains in hospitals and so on. And some are doing social work. So what is the context in which this doctoral program, my thesis, is going to be born out of? And part of that was looking at my context, looking at the history of who it is that we are. So I was already familiar with a lot of the broad brush strokes of First Congregational Church's beginnings, and how FCC was formed by a group of folks who were heavily involved with the temperance movements of the late 1800s. But I needed some more precise details, so I went to the website. And the first thing I noted was that FCC met for worship, like I said at the beginning, on March 5th, 1893. And so I looked that up. As the historian that I am as well, I'm curious about such things. I wondered, well, who was the president that day? Well, as it turns out, Grover Cleveland, remember, was the 22nd president, and also skipped a beat with Benjamin Harrison, and then started his second administration as the 24th president. So Grover Cleveland, Grover Washington Jr.'s favorite jazz guy, right? Anyway, from Philly. Grover Cleveland's second term began yesterday in 1823. So this was the second day of his term. But anyway, then in March 1864, a year later, we were legal under California state law. My immediate takeaways is that we need to begin our celebration now and begin to our celebration committee. And indeed, we have a celebration committee that is Val Shearer, Julie Dowling, and Denise Walker. So thank you. And more will be coming. More will be coming. 2, I noticed that we have a full year to celebrate. And again, the dates of 1893 and 2023 coincide exactly. And this, to me, adds a whole nother level of cosmic excitement. As I tend to do, I began to wonder, well, how is that congregation that was born out of the temperance movement, how did it transform into a progressive, open, and affirming congregation that is involved in immigration justice? Just what might be the common thread? What is that common thread that unites us with our own past? My thoughts immediately went to our congregational ancestors, the Pilgrims, and present-day Provincetown, Massachusetts. Because what in the world connects something so completely different with something completely so different in the same place? So what connects Provincetown, Massachusetts in 1620 with Provincetown, Massachusetts in 2023? The Pilgrims, who were not pilgrims, so pilgrims were part of that pilgrim thing. We got the Pilgrim Park, we got the Pilgrim Hill Fund, we have pilgrim hymnals that we haul out at Christmas time. So as pilgrims, that's part of our faith tradition in the United Church of Christ, right? So pilgrims actually weren't referred to as pilgrims until 1820 when they were doing a 200-year anniversary. But they thought of themselves as Puritans. In the late 1500s, after King Henry VIII broke away from the Catholic Church in 1534, there was a movement in England to purify the excesses of the Church of England. When they found that purifying the excesses of the Anglican Church was a lot like swimming upstream and would be nearly impossible, the Puritans became known as separatists. They gave up on purifying, and so they decided to separate from the Church of England. And while the Presbyterians did this in Scotland, they didn't think the Presbyterians went far enough. And while the separatists agreed with the Presbyterians on matters of faith and theology, they were seeking to create a more congregational, a more involved style of church governance, something that was more democratic and equitable for everyone else. Any form of faith and worship other than the Church of England in England at the time was illegal. And William Bradford, one of the leaders of the separatist movement, wrote in his diary about how they had become so persecuted that they could no longer peacefully live in England. Hear that. The separatist movement thought that they were persecuted and that they could no longer live in peace. How many folks are living that same kind of reality now? Feeling persecuted, targeted, and don't have peace in their lives. And so the separatists tried to bring that to themselves. They found a safe place, safe haven in Leiden, Holland. After about 10 years or so of, actually 12 years of living in Holland, the leaders and the parents of this group noticed that their kids were being assimilated and were becoming more Dutch than they were English. And while these separatist groups did not like the Church of England, they loved England and their English ways. And so they decided they couldn't live in Holland anymore, and they couldn't go back to England anymore. They decided to go to the New World. And they made plans where they could live out their faith in freedom, retain their English identity, and carve out new life for themselves, to be who they are, to be their authentic selves. And before they left to find the new life somewhere up in the Hudson River, just past, that's where they were headed. There's Manhattan Island, and they were no New York there yet. They were going to head up the Hudson River and find a place to be there, to find to colonize there. Before they left Holland, they held a worship service with their pastor, John Robinson, who famously told them, "For I am very confident the Lord hath more light, more truth, and light yet to break forth out of his holy word." So don't keep paying attention to Luther and Calvin. Go forward, because there's more light to break forth. So the church then is not stagnant. It doesn't fossilize its theology and its doctrines. It moves forward because there's more light and truth ready to break forth. And so with those words, what we call the Pilgrims left Holland and headed for England first. The plan was to leave on the Speedwell from Leiden, Holland, on July 15, 1620, which they did in July. And then they were going to hook up with the Mayflower and take two ships from Southampton, which is just below London, and then go toward the Hudson River. The Speedwell kept on taking on water, though. They left Southampton and had to return back to England. Then they left again, and the Speedwell wasn't fixed yet, and they came back and they tried to fix it. It was still taking on water, and so it wasn't until September 16th, 1620, that all 119 passengers, both saints and strangers, got on the one boat, the Mayflower, and they all piled into the Mayflower and set sail from Plymouth, England. There was a series of storms. This was not a good time to go, and I wonder if the voyage would have been any different had they left in July. But they left in September, and there was a series of storms, and at times they had to bring down the sails and just drift because the winds were so bad they couldn't have their sails up. On November 9th, 1620, 66 days after leaving England, suffering through storms of the Atlantic, they first made their landfall in a protective cove where the fist curls underneath on Cape Cod, and they found a little place. There's a little finger, a little finger of land that comes out this way, and the Mayflower came in and found a safe cove, a safe harbor at what we now call Provincetown. Today, Provincetown, Massachusetts serves as a magnet to history buffs, whale watchers, and also as a safe haven for the LGBTQ community. And I wondered, what is the connection between the queer community and the Pilgrims, for crying out loud? At first glance, it seems totally opposite. Then it dawned on me. Provincetown then, in 1620, as it is now, has always been about seeking freedom and express our authentic selves about who we are, whether you are a pilgrim or whether you are someone else trying to find a safe place to be yourself. So that's about the Pilgrims and modern-day Provincetown, Massachusetts. But what's that got to do with our present-day FCC and the connection to the temperance movement of 1893? How am I to make this connection with Pilgrims and the temperance movement and us? Until the prohibition of alcohol became the obsessive target, the temperance movement didn't begin as the movement that would lead to the 18th Amendment in 1919 banning alcohol. The temperance movement began as a movement about health, our personalities, our personal responsibilities, who it is we are, to own our own stuff, our emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual self. It was about our marriages and our families and our relationships with our children and our parents and that 360-degree relationship that we have with everyone. It was about a safe and secure structure of a loving, caring community and culture that wasn't taken apart by alcohol. As someone who is one generation from someone who spent his paycheck buying drinks for himself and his buddies at the local bar after he got his paycheck, while his wife took in the neighbor's laundry because she was at home with 5 kids to feed and clothe, I get it. I understand the temperance movement. So how does all this tie together? Abraham and Sarah left their home with the promise of land and descendants, as many as the stars in the sky and as much sand as there is in the ocean. There are over 30 million, so that's a lot of folks. A promise kept. A promise, a hope that started out with 119 passengers. Half of those were the Pilgrims, and they left England and they came here, and now there are over 30 million people that can claim their ancestry to the Mayflower folks. Our temperance faith ancestors envisioned a different, healthy, and authentic way to live. And like the progressive, loving, caring, and inclusive nature of First Congregational Church now, and then as it was back then, FCC has always been about justice and about the safe and secure structure of family, community, culture, and our faith. Well, on the face of it, Abraham, the Pilgrims, the queer community, and FCC, and the FCC now and the FCC then, looked very different from each other. But what we all seek is what Christ brought to us, is a world without persecution, a world without oppression, and a world without condemnation. For Christ came to save us, to heal us, not condemn us. That all people, no matter who we are on life's journey, that we boldly go where nobody has ever gone before, like Abraham, like the folks on the Mayflower, because that's where God sends us, to the unknown, dragging us out of the comfort zone, where we can seek healing, freedom, and safety to be our authentic selves. Call it the call of God. Call it the human spirit. It's probably the same thing. That change, that evolutionary and organic development has been part of the human story and journey since the very beginning. It is also the history of the church. Healthy change and organic growth has always been who the church has been since the call of Abraham, to go to a place you've never been before. And so for 130 years, First Congregational Church has proclaimed the love of Jesus Christ for all people. It's just who we are. It's in our DNA. And so, on this first day, on this anniversary of this first day from 1893 to 2023, let's let the celebrations begin. Praise be to Christ. Amen.